sunny Isle of Wight.
Good, fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief introduction about what's going on today, this morning, and then I'll let Graham start with his talk. I've already shared, yeah, it's going here, good, brilliant. So this conference is organized by Seneca Learning. I don't know if all of you are already there, but we are a free online platform with over 20 primary courses for different subjects and different ages. And it's all free, and you can just join and work with that together with other 4 million students and teachers that we already have using our website. So I posted on the chat, but I'm going to post again. Our website's www.senecalearning.com. And if you go there, you'll be able to create a free account. Your students will be able to create the free accounts, and then you can create assignments and activities for them. Everything is self-graded or automated marking, and then you receive a detailed report about everybody's progress. So it's a really good way to keep informed about how your students are progressing during lockdown, and also even when we go back to school, or if we're still in school. It's great, and it's all free, and we have a very good basis of neuroscience. So I am a cognitive neuroscience, and I've been working with Seneca since the beginning. And we really made sure to implement retrieval practice, interleaving, dual coding, all of those things that really helped with memory and really help with learning into a platform, into a methodology. So they're really fun, really engaging, really interactive materials that you can use to set assignments and then keep checking how your students are progressing on each task. And it's all adaptive, so the platform checks the answers if they are correct and wrong for each student, and then selects new questions according to each one. So it's a personalized adaptive system that is really, really great and been using for 4 million people. Okay, so you have the website, you can go there later. So just to go through some FAQs, these talks will be available on YouTube, so you can watch them later and you can share with your colleagues who couldn't make it this morning. You will receive an email with all the slides and information, so you don't have to keep asking about the slides. That happens in every conference. Every third message on the chat is, can we have the slides? Yes, you can have the slides. You will receive them by email today. And please use Twitter to talk about our conference. So usually the best things about conferences is when you can meet other people, you know, in the corridors, and then say, hi, what did you think about that talk? And then have a coffee together. We can't do it because we're all online, but we can do it via Twitter. So if you go on Twitter, you can tag all of our speakers, tag us, and use the hashtag SenecaCPD and Primary Rocks, and then we'll all be able to keep in touch and talk about this conference. Lastly, the questions. Please ask questions. Our speakers are here to ask questions. They love questions. It's what makes it even more interesting than Graham saying no, than the talks themselves. Please type on the chat. So you don't have to wait until the end to just raise your hand and say something, because we're all online. So just type the questions as we go. As the speaker is presenting, just type the questions. I'm going to copy them into another file, and then I'm going to ask all the questions during the question time. Okay, so make sure you ask a lot of questions. Go on Twitter and visit our page. Does anybody have any questions? We have 2 minutes for questions. We start with the first talk. Just type on the chat if you have any questions. I guess we're all good. Okay, so Graham, whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen and get started.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Just in case you don't know me, my name is Graham Andre. I'm doing dual roles at the moment. I'm a Year 5 class teacher, but also an assistant head on a primary school on the Isle of Wight. I'm a Year 5 teacher. I've been teaching this is my 9th year. So quite new to it, really, but I've always had an education background. So I've always worked in schools, really. I've been a TA and all sorts of other jobs around school. I think I've done probably most of the roles, including dinner lady, cleaner, cook, secretary. So I come at it from quite a few angles. Right, today I'm going to be looking and talking to you about something called Genius Hour, which is something I discovered actually at the very sort of start of my Twitter journey about 8 years ago. I didn't use Twitter very much. It was before Primary Rocks had been created, and I'd got into that. And I just used to lurk around. And one of the best chats that I used to sort of watch and get involved with was the Aussie Ed one, because that was sort of early on a Sunday morning. It was quite a nice time. I could sit there with my coffee and see what's going on. And one week they were doing a chat on creativity in the classroom, and this hashtag Genius Hour kept appearing, and I just wanted to find out more about it. So for the first time ever, I sort of joined in and started tweeting and asking about Genius Hour and what it was. And all these lovely people from across the other side of the world started giving me more and more information. And so I started doing some research on it, and I was just blown away by Genius Hour and the implications for the classroom and the impact since I've been doing it, the impact it's had on my children, especially when we look forward to 21st century skills, which I'll be talking about a little bit more in a minute. So Genius Hour, that's how I found out about it, and I'm going to be talking to you about that this morning. Okay, so definition of Genius Hour. Genius Hour is something actually that came from Google, and what Google did or used to do was they used to give their employees 20% of the working week for them to pursue their own interests and their own projects. And through this 20% time, they managed to get things like Gmail and Google Drive. So lots of the really big projects that Google used or are using now are something that came from this passion time, they call it, that their employees got. So somebody took that and thought about it and said, right, how can we take that model and bring it to our schools? And so so Genius Hour was formed in that way. And actually the genius Latin definition is to bring into being or to create and produce. And that's what it's all about, Genius Hour. It's not about being a genius. It is about creating something, producing something, bringing something into the classroom. And all of these 21st century skills that you can see on here are all of the sorts of skills that children will be using, especially the creativity side. So idea generation, designing, refining, working creatively with others. There's also a lot in there about discussions, communicating their skills, delivering oral presentations. They do have to problem solve, because quite often they will have an idea in their mind of what they want to produce, and it doesn't always work. So through Genius Hour, what you do is you give the children 1 hour a week to pursue their own project. And what I love about this, what I love about Genius Hour, is that actually it's one of my favorite times of the week, because what you can do is you can give children the resources, you can give children the time, and actually you spend a lot of time. I've got a little video I'll share with you later. I spend a lot of the time just wandering around the classroom, talking to children about what they are doing, and I'm not teaching very much at all. You know, I'm assessing what's going on. I'm assessing what's going on in the classroom. I'm assessing what the children are doing. But actually, my input is very minimal. It's all coming from the children. And that's what I love about it. I love to see how children problem solve, how they are creating, how they are working together to create their project. And then we've had many, many projects. I'll share some of those projects that my children have done with you in a minute. So it does help with those 21st century skills, those skills that actually we can't teach explicitly in the classroom, and it covers so many. It also, for those people that are sticklers for the curriculum, it also covers lots of areas of the curriculum. So you've got in there literacy, sometimes you have maths, you do have DT, you do have computing, there is definitely art, so there are lots of other skills, literacy, so there are lots of other skills that are being covered there too. Curiosity is something you're born with, and that's what comes about with Genius Hour as well. Children are quite often curious about the way the world works and things that they don't know the answers to. And so Genius Hour can be really good for that. We use sometimes ungoogleable questions, questions that you can't find the answer to on Google, and they are sometimes the basis for the Genius Hour projects. So some advice and planning, etc., to do this to start with, because it can be when you give your children, you give this hour over to your children to do their own project, it can be quite, you're losing control. You're not losing control of the class, but you're giving time over to these children to do basically their own projects. So it can be a little daunting. And actually, when I first did it with my children, it was one of my first years of teaching. I wondered if it was a good idea or not. But like I say, it's one of my favorite times of the week. And I've done it with a range of ages as well now. I've started off with year 2, year 4, year 5, up to year 6, and also the younger year groups within our school, they've taken it up and they've done it. And I've got some little activities and things that I can show you for children that may not be able to do their Genius Hour project, because a Genius Hour project is a project that takes half a term. So your project would have a time span. So you'd say, right, we've got 6 weeks for you to do your project, and by the end of your 6 weeks, you will be presenting this project to the rest of your class. So the children have got a clear time frame, and through that time frame, you've of course got 6 hours, and they can present it however they want. They can do it, they can do it on paper, on a flip chart. They can create a website. They can create props. And I'll show you, you can see better actually when I show you the examples of some of the ones we've done before. This little link here at the bottom, and I will share the links and things that I show you throughout the morning, is somebody called Joy Kerr, and you can find her on Twitter at Joy Kerr. And she is an American teacher who is a big advocate for Genius Hour. And this is her website. It's a live binder website, and it has a whole array of Genius Hour resources on there, hundreds and thousands of Genius Hour resources, not just ones that are professionally produced, but plenty of resources and ideas from teachers all around the world that have used Genius Hour. And if you want to talk to a proper expert, then talk to her. She is amazing. I know a little bit, but she knows so much. Those people that are secondary teachers, I don't know if there is anyone here, it has been used in secondary schools as well, and there are lots and lots of examples on that website of how it has been used in secondaries. Right, this is one of the very simple first sheets that I created when I did Genius Hour with my children, and it was basically the 3 little bubbles at the top, the 3 clouds at the top, were their ideas to put in. So 3 things that they were experts. So that's what we started with. That was a basis of our start. We wanted children to feel comfortable with the idea of Genius Hour and creating their project. So they had to put 3 different things in that they were experts or interested in, that they could teach the rest of the class about. And so they drew, or they wrote, or they just put little notes, or combination of both within those 3 clouds. And then they thought about it, and they talked to their friend, or they talked to me. And then at the very bottom, they decided in that big cloud what their project was going to be. And again, this was what I used with the younger children, so I did this with year 2. But to be fair, at this planning stage, because what you really want is you want to see the end product, and you want to see that journey there. This planning stage isn't that important, so I wouldn't spend hours on this, because then it takes away the impact of the actual project itself. So you could use this with anyone. You can see how old it is because it's got Frozen on there, Minecraft, and a very old, I'm not sure if that's an Xbox or what it is, but probably needs a bit of an update, that one. There are, for older children, there are sheets out there that you can use. This one's a really nice one, and again, you'll find this. I'll share a Google Drive link later on, and you've got these resources on there. This one's a bit nice. It's a bit different to the last one, you can see. And this one starts looking at the equipment and the material and how you'll be presenting it. So once you've got Genius Hour embedded within your class, or if you're working with older children, this is quite a nice one to do with them too. And then this one here is like a weekly reflection for those children. Again, this is more for the older children. So through their weeks of their doing their project, they've got like a timetable to describe what they're going to do that week for their project, and then they're going to reflect upon it by saying how we got on, what we need to do next week, what we could have done better. So these are some, I love these. These are some examples of things that we did with, or I have done with my children with Genius Hour when I've been using it. So this was a year 2 class, and these children here, they created blogs, online blogs. The top left, there was a Batman blog there. There was the bottom one there, he created a milkshake blog, which was about different milkshakes and how to create them and how to make them. And this is Ewan, he's gone up to high school now. But Ewan there, he created one of the best blogs ever. It had a brilliant name. It's called The Fishing Net. And I couldn't believe, like the internet, the fishing net, I couldn't believe that somebody hadn't taken that name and used it before. And he was interested in fishing, so he did that. And you see they're presenting it there. So we made blogs. Children designed and made costumes there. We've got somebody made a superhero costume. We had Emily, that little Emily there in the middle. This was brilliant for her confidence, because before doing this, she didn't speak. She hadn't spoken or presented to the class before, and she created those dresses. So she drew them first of all, and then she cut them out. And she did a presentation not just to our class. She went down to reception and presented to them too. And that was a huge step forward for her and her independence and her confidence. We also created lots of things. So there's a puppet show there. There's a dance theatre to the right there. That was a ballet school. And you can see they don't look super professional, but that's the whole point. These are things that the children have created for themselves, and actually it's their work. We created books. So some children we managed to find in our cupboards some old texts, some old blank lined books that the children then created all different books about. So you can see there's a whole range of different ways in which the children took their learning, took their skills, took their interests, and did that every week and then presented at the very end. We also got some children, of course, they wanted to use technology. So one of our children really liked Inca cities and was really interested in the Incas. And so they created Inca cities in Minecraft, which still blows my mind today. Also, once we'd done that, so we started off looking at ways in which children could present things that they were experts in. We started then to think, right, what questions do you have? What things do you like to know the answer to that you don't do? So you can see this on the big pink piece of sugar paper there. We've got, how are tornadoes made? Is Krypton the real planet? How do TVs work? And so the children just threw out those questions, and that became the basis for their project for that half term. So they took those questions and they did research about it, and then they did a presentation about that as well. And then one of the other things we did is we flipped it on the head. So the first one was about things that we were experts at. We also looked at things that we weren't experts at, things that we'd like to become experts at, things we'd like to be really good at, but we're not at this moment. So the children then threw out their ideas of how to draw animals or knitting or learning more about monkeys. So that was the basis for their project for that half term. So they took things that they weren't very good at or weren't expert at, and by the end of it they were. And there were some really lovely things going on. There's some really nice practical things. There was children that were knitting. They couldn't knit to start with, and they could by the end. There were children there that couldn't draw animals but could by the end. So again, that was a really nice journey because you could see children every week having that hour just to work on something that they wanted to get better at. There's a whole list of ideas. If you just Google Genius Hour ideas on the internet, you can find so many things. And lots of these things here are great things. Do babies dream? No idea about that one. But again, if you follow the link that I said earlier, there are lots and lots of ideas. If you're not quite sure yourself what to do or how to approach it with your children, there are lots of things there that you can do. There's so many resources online. We also we've adapted it from time to time to go with things that are going on in our classroom or topics that we are doing. And this was one that we did on Genius Club. So the children had to create their own club to be run at lunchtime. And so they worked in pairs or on their own, and they thought of a club that they would like to do. And through this, they then had to create costumes, possibly. If you came to the club, there might have been costumes. There were rules that you had to adhere to. There were you had to make posters with the time and the place. There were membership cards. There were bracelets. There were all sorts of things for all these different clubs that the children had ideas to do. And then they presented those at the end. They were brilliant. I love those. We also had a topic where we were looking at the future, and this was Genius Back to the Future. So children had to create things that they thought would be very useful for in the future. You can see the top left-hand side there, that's Rory. He's got, that's a football pitch that you wear, and wherever you are, you can just lay down and people can play football on you. We've got in the middle there, there's a time machine. Bottom left, that's a robot that can dish out food whenever you need it and drink. And Lola at the very bottom there, who's covering up her face, that is a flying car. That is her flying car, and she's used Pringle tubes to great effect for the wings there, as you can see. You could use any other tubed crisps as well if you want, not just Pringles. I don't want to be done for selling adverts there. So again, you can adapt this to whatever you're doing within the class, but it's always nice to start off with that thing that children are experts on. This is a little video that I'm going to show, and it shows that the children in my class doing Genius Hour, and actually you'll see that every child is on task, every child is doing something, and like I say, I just watch and facilitate and let them get on with it. One thing I forgot to mention is if you want a tidy classroom, that doesn't happen here. The classroom becomes a bit of a mess over the course of Genius Hour. But you know, it can all be tidied up at the end, and that's a lesson that you can do with the kids as well, that by the end of the lesson, we need to build in that time so that we can tidy up and make the class look normal again. But like I say, you can see every child there is on task. Some are working together, some are working independently. But it is my favourite hour of the week. For younger children, something we've done with younger children, and actually we've done with the whole school, is I don't know if you've heard about the cardboard challenge. This is something we do every year to promote creativity within the school. So we started it about 6 years ago after seeing the video of Kane's Arcade. It's brilliant. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. And basically Kane, he worked with his dad in his garage, and every weekend Dad would have boxes that car parts would have come in, and Kane used those to create arcade games, and he would invite people in who were customers to play his arcade. And nobody came, and then one day this bloke turned up who was a filmmaker, director, and he loved what Kane did, and he made this little documentary about him. And from that came the idea of Cardboard Challenge, and Cardboard Challenges every year. And so we've done that as a school based on whatever we've been doing. So this first year we started off with Kane's Arcade, so we did arcade games, and then we've done things like we had a topic of rolled dolls, so we created things from rolled dolls. But in every class we had cardboard everywhere, and children created things, and then we displayed them at the end. This year was a little bit different because of COVID, and I'll show you what we did. Hopefully, if I have time by the end of this presentation. We also, for the younger children, I created something called the 10-minute challenge. 10-minute challenge. Ooh, that's a mouthful. And basically, I'll go back to that in a minute. Basically, what that was, but for Genius 10 minutes. So you'd have shapes on a page, just really, really simple, and you'd ask the children to draw. This one's a vehicle, so a car, rocket, boat, and through that, the children use their imagination. And again, you give them that 10-minute time span, and they can create some absolutely amazing things. I really love the one the top left there. That's a car, but actually it's for long journeys, and it can take a lot of people, and you can sleep on it, which is really nice. There's one to the right there, which is a bus car type thing, but everybody gets to drive it. So they're really nice, and I've got a whole range of those which I've created, which I will share as well. We have this, so this was our first box cardboard challenge, and you can see there's some pictures there, and we invited all the parents in. And what was lovely about that, we called it Lane's End Arcade. What was lovely about that was that we set it up in the hall. And on the Friday, parents came in, children brought in their pennies, 1p, 2p to play the arcade games, and all the money we raised went towards the school, so to raise funds. That was an article up there, top left, that I did for a magazine about Genius Hour and about Cardboard Challenge. There is, I'm a bit mindful of the time actually, there's a link here. If I can get time, I will put it on. This is a YouTube video of what we did this year. So the Cardboard Challenge this year, because of COVID and the world being a strange place, we couldn't invite parents in and we couldn't work across bubbles. So what we did was we got the children this year to think of something that we could do as a weekly project, a week-long project for Cardboard Challenge. And so children came up with different ideas. And the one we went with was that one of our, actually it was a girl in my class, she said, wouldn't it be lovely if every year group created a door, and as you walked through the door, there was different places within the world or fantasy worlds that you would enter, a little bit like the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe going through the cupboard. And so that's what we did this year. So every year group spent a week creating things that as you go through the door, you will see them. And it was possibly our best one yet. It was so good. And you can see actually, because we've been doing it for a few years now, the culmination of DT skills that the children have built over the years, this year's was just the best yet. I do hope that I will have time to show you that at the end. If not, you can find it on YouTube. I've done several blogs on Innovate My School. Mike Fleeton's been a big advocate for me for Genius Hour, and he's got some really nice resources on his website, and I've written about Genius Hour on there. I've also, if you go to my website, mathematicshed.com, I've got a blog on there, which I did some time ago, but it's my journey, my first year of Genius Hour, and my thoughts and what I did for that first year. So that's quite a nice one if you're thinking about doing it yourself. Having a little read of that and seeing the things that I found worked well and things that possibly didn't work so well. I've also, when I've tweeted about it and talked about it, I haven't talked about it very much recently, of course, because my sort of gender things have taken over, my little gender project. But that when I did tweet about it, and I've done presentations about it in the past, people have taken it on and they've really, really enjoyed doing it. It's one of those things that once you do it, you think, why didn't I do it before? And how didn't I know about it? Also, at the end of this is again at the end of my first year of doing it, we always ask the children at the end of the year, what's your favorite thing? What have you enjoyed? So they do their own reports at the end of the year, which we give to parents. And within those reports, they always write something that they've enjoyed over the year. And lots of our children enjoyed Genius Hour. It's one of those things. It's also an imaginative. Sorry, but the quality is not very good. I will go back. I will show you this because actually it blows my mind. Hopefully it will work. Can you see my screen, everyone?
We see the screen, but only the blue slide.
Okay, right. Let me see if I can just if I stop sharing that one and share another one. Thanks, Flavia. There we go. Let's try that. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you. just going to stop it there because I am mindful of the time and I don't want to take over anyone else's. So yes, we that was our cardboard challenge. You can see that was across from reception to year 6. Every year group had a different project which they did. So it is on YouTube if you want to see it. Going back to Genius Hour, Genius Hour is amazing. It is fantastic. I have got a whole load of resources which I will share. And I've got a link with some of the basic resources which I showed as well. But if you really want a whole cornucopia, as a good word, of resources, then the link that I shared earlier, or follow Joy Kerr on Twitter. She is the queen of Genius Hour. Thank you for listening. If you do have any questions, don't know if there are any, Flavia, then please throw them my way. I'll see what I can do to answer them.
Thank you so much, Graham. Yes, there are questions. That was really great, and very impressed by all the creations that the children made. Okay, so a few questions. Let me get my notes. Right, so first one, a practical question. How often do you do the Genius Hour?
Just once a week. So you do it once a week, give them that hour a week, and it happens over sort of like a half term. So if you've got a 6-week half term, then we do it for 1 hour for 6 weeks, and then after half term we create another project, or we do another project. So it's just an hour a week, so they know that that's there. And because we only do it an hour a week, that's their special time. The children really look forward to it.
Yeah, okay, good. And do the TA support the children, or do they only facilitate?
No, just facilitate, really. I mean, it does depend on your children and your class, and you know them better than anyone. What we try and do is we try and help the children, just to maybe give them ideas, because sometimes they will come to a problem that they may not be able to have they may not have the skills to deal with or to overcome themselves. So you give them the ideas of, right, okay, if you can't do this, what can you do to help yourself? What we don't want is it become a frustrating thing for the children, but actually we also want them to be able to, that stickability is to stick at it. And if something does go wrong, then they bounce back and they give it a go. And actually it doesn't matter if they make a mistake. So yeah, we try not to get ourselves involved too much, but not always possible, of course.
And what adaptations have you had to make for Genius Hour because of COVID and the lockdown? Does that still work remotely?
I know, you can't, it doesn't work remotely. You're absolutely right. We work in bubbles, so within our classes, it's just fine with COVID. Of course, we tell the children not to try and get too close to each other or to lick any of the materials they're using, but it still works. It's still, and actually, if you wanted to, you could say that actually for this Genius Hour, you've got to work alone. You have to work on your own, and it's going to be an independent Genius Hour. But it depends how your bubbles work, but it's still possible to do it during these COVID times. I didn't want to mention that this morning, to be honest, but
wow, somebody
trying to stay away from the COVID times.
Yeah. And what about parents? Do they also help with the, I know it's done in class, but is there anything for parents to help with?
I mean, they can take their ideas home, and quite often children do. They quite often take their learning home, especially when it comes to things like research. So if they are researching on, one of those questions in there was how do tsunamis happen? So they can take their learning home and bring it in. So it is one of those things that you can take in and out of the classroom. It's less you're less able to do it, especially COVID times, with creating things. What we try and do though is say, look, this is our special hour of the week for you to do your project. So we try not to make it go into other times if possible, because it is that special time. We do invite the parents in as well to see the presentations at the end. Of course, before COVID, we did it in real life, but of course we'd film it now to send home. So again, it's those presentation skills that children are learning as well. And it's nice for the parents to see.
Yeah. And then Christina was asking if the work is usually done in pairs or groups or individually.
It's entirely up to the children. Again, this is one of those things that's really nice. If children have got a common theme, so if they both wanted to work on Minecraft to make Inca cities, then they could work together. Or if they both were looking at milkshakes and the best milkshake recipes, then they could work together. So again, it's those themes. If children have got common themes and they do want to work together, then they can.
Yep. And Anna just asked, how do you differentiate those tasks within EAL and SEND children?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's sort of self-differentiating because children just work at their own level. So whatever you get from the children is their work. So
Yeah.
that's it. Because it's not like a normal maths or a literacy lesson that you do have to differentiate quite a lot for those children. This one is self-differentiating. So whatever the children create or produce, it's their work. And actually, some of those children produce some of the best work. It's brilliant. And I think that's one of the lovely things about Genius Hour as well, is children aren't graded on it. They're not marked on it. They're not, it's something, it's their project, it's their interest, and actually what they produce, they're always really proud of it. So are we.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. No, they look really, really great. I know you didn't mention COVID, but there was another question on if you think that, isolation and lockdown is having any effect on kids' creativity, the 21st century skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I think things like this are probably even more important than before, allowing children that time to be creative, to take cardboard and paper and scissors and glue and sellotape and just to create something. Because actually, we all love doing that. If somebody said to me, look, Mr. Andre, Graham, you've got an hour a week to pursue your own project and no one's going to stop you in that hour a week, I'd love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody would. Yeah, that sounds nice. Are there any main difficulties with the Genius Hour that somebody should keep in mind if they're going to try for the first time? Be prepared for this and this.
Yeah, no, I've not found any difficulty. It just sometimes it's hard to resource. So you do need lots of cardboard, you do need lots of sugar paper and glue and scissors. Glue sticks, they can always be difficult. Just to remind the children to put the lids back on. It is a resourcing thing sometimes. So you do have to, that initial resourcing of what the children want to do can be quite difficult. But again, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to cost the school a fortune. I used old textbooks and things for the children when they did their books. We've got ICT, so for the ones that did the blogs, we used free Weebly website to do that. So no, I'm making it sound like it's amazing, but it really is. I haven't had any difficulties at all. Sometimes the children gets a bit stuck and, they've got to show that resilience to overcome a problem, but they always do, and they always produce something at the end.
Yep. And then Justine just asked if there was a whole school approach or you studied in your class and then other teachers started doing too.
Yeah, well, when I found out about it through the Aussie Ed chat, I went to my head. I emailed her actually straight afterwards on a Sunday. She was happy about that. And I said, I've been looking at this and I think it's such a brilliant idea. And so I pitched it to her and she said, well, if you try it in your class, first of all, we'll see how it goes. And so I did. And of course, it was quite nice that I did the blog online so that people could see what was happening and how it's going. And there are photos and things on there. And it went brilliantly. And then so I went to the head and said, look, this is what's happened. She came in and watched the presentations. And then I did a whole staff training on it. And again, the staff loved that. They all cried over the Kane's Arcade video, which is amazing. And it's just been part of our school since then.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, and now Christina's asking if that would work with the reception class.
Yeah, again, you might want to, if you were doing it with reception class. We have done it with reception children. Reception children do it. You might want to base it around. You might want to do it as part of one of the stations. I know I can't remember what it's called in reception now. It's been such a long time since I've been in there, but they have time where they can be creative. You might want to have a little station where they can go and create their own little projects. You might not want to do it over a half term. You might want to do it over a week or 2 weeks so they can create things and then share it with the rest of the class. It doesn't have to be that prescriptive. You don't have to do it over 6 weeks. And again, you could adapt it any way you wanted to. You could You could even weekly, and just anything that children have made within the creative area with the loo rolls and things, they could then just come and present and show the other children. So it doesn't have to be that model. You can adapt it to however you want, really.
Yep. And there's a cool question from Anna here. If you include any environmental ecological education in terms of using cardboards, like recycling or reusing the resources.
Yeah, that's really good. We try to. We try to if we can. So anything we use and it can be reused, then we do. Again with the cardboard challenge this year, all of the cardboard we used, we've kept, so that we've either kept it to display, because we've got lovely displays around the school now, or we've kept it so that we can reuse it again. We do try. Yeah. We don't use glitter either. Never use glitter. In fact, you could make it part of your Genius Hour, couldn't you? You could make it part of the challenge that children can only do their project if it's eco-friendly. Like
yeah.
that idea.
Yeah. And last question before we stop, if you also from Anna, if you include any cross-curricular links in this project.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's, I mean, it's totally cross-curricular anyway, because you've got children that are using art, you've got children there that are doing literacy, you've got children that are maybe doing maths, you've got children that may be doing geography or history, depending on what their project is. So DT, ICT, it's one of those things that is really cross-curricular. It ticks a lot of boxes for our children. So yes, it does, Anna. Thanks for the question.
Okay, I think we have to stop now. So thank you very much. That was great. So lots of questions. People loved it. And everybody can go for a cup of tea. And please be back at 10:25 so we can continue.
I'll make sure I send the links and things to you, Flavia, so you can share as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks for inviting me again.
No, thank you. It's always great. Always welcome to come back.
Lovely, will do.
And I'll see you all at 10:25. All right, welcome back. Let's give a few seconds for people to come back. It's been great so far. So now we're gonna have our next speaker, who is Bren Goodman, talking about teaching computing outdoors. So Bren, so maybe just wait 1 minute for everybody to come back, and then you can start. You can already share your screen so people can see your first slide.
Okay. I'll do that now.
Yep, cool.
Can we see that?
Yes, can see that?
Good.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that this talk is also live on YouTube. It's being live streamed. So, and will be recorded and will be kept on YouTube. So you can share there, you can rewatch there, you can share the with your colleagues who couldn't make it this morning. And also remind everybody to go on Twitter and tweet about the ideas that you're hearing here. So, initially the Genius Hour, and then computing outdoors, and then what Emily's going to talk about later. And tag our speakers and tag Seneca so that we all can have a conversation even after the conference. And then you can also meet other primary teachers and then increase your network, and then just have more people to talk to and discuss new ideas and new resources for your class. And then the last thing I want to remind you is to go on senecalearning.com and check out our over 20 free courses for primary children, primary teachers. They're all free. They're all with automated marking. They're all fun, interactive, used by neuroscientists, created by neuroscientists, used by over 4 million students and teachers. So it is a good extra resource to have on your radar. Okay, so Bren, whenever you're ready, feel free to start.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name's Bren Goodman. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, I've got the imaginatively titled @BrenGoodman Twitter handle. I'm going to be talking to you today a little bit about computing outdoors. This is something that is part of the curriculum work that I've been doing as computing lead basically since March. I rewrote our school computing curriculum to make it more progression focused. And then I came across a chat on Twitter by the Computing at School people, who they do a weekly chat around computing ideas, and they were talking about possible ways to teach computing outdoors, and it just kind of got me thinking that that's something that we could build into our curriculum at school. Now I must give you a disclaimer. I'm still in the very early stages of my thinking around this, so the ideas that I'm going to suggest to you are not tried and tested. They're just kind of ways to start you thinking about how you could do this, and hopefully to generate kind of more ideas yourself. They're just suggestions. It's not an exhaustive list of ideas, just something to kind of help you start thinking about this if it's something that you would be interested in pursuing in your school. Okay, so first of all, I started to think about why this would be a good idea. Why would it be a good idea to teach computing outdoors? And I came up with 3 main reasons. I'm sure there are others, but these were the 3 that kind of struck me as some of the most important. First of all, and unless you've been living in a cave, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And part of the advice, certainly, that we've been given at school is to try and get the children outside as much as possible, because apparently the virus is less virulent if you're outdoors. So that's the first reason, because it kind of fits in with that agenda of getting the children outdoors as much as possible. Secondly, the idea is that the children it'll give them another opportunity to be active outside of the usual PE lessons and that kind of thing in the Daily Mile, if you do that at your school. Get them moving about, get them moving about in a safe environment outdoors. And then finally, when I talk to teachers at school, one of the main reasons why they found the teaching of computing difficult, well, there are 2 main reasons really. One is lack of subject knowledge. They don't feel confident in teaching the computing objectives, and also the lack of devices, or devices that for whatever reason don't work. So the app on one particular iPad doesn't work, or the internet that won't connect, or those kind of things that can be quite frustrating. So the idea behind computing outdoors is that pretty much 90% of the ideas that I'm going to suggest don't involve any devices whatsoever. And this is also useful, again, linking back to the pandemic issue, is that if schools have to go to remote learning at any time, then the activities that I'm going to show you a sample of are activities that children could do at home, because they won't be reliant on a device to achieve to do those activities. Okay, so that's kind of my rationale behind why I think it might be a good idea to teach computing outdoors. Now, then I start to think about, well, what are we going to teach? Now, I've been a computing lead for about 5 or 6 years now, and quite often you hear people on Twitter saying, "Oh, I've got there's this really good app. I wonder what I could do with that." And then it kind of makes us experienced computing teachers go, "Whoa, hang on a minute, that's the wrong way around. Really, we should be starting with what we want the children to learn, and then be looking for ideas about how we're going to deliver that." So it seemed a logical thing for me to start with the national curriculum and the statements for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, and then build up an ideas bank of activities that you could do outdoors to deliver those statements. And that was my kind of starting point, really. Once I decided why I thought it was a good idea, I'd looked at the national curriculum and then tried to think of ideas of delivering the statements in that national curriculum in an outdoor setting. Again, minimizing the need for devices. Okay, so that's where I was coming from the what point of view. So then I started to think of the activities. I'm not going to go through all of the activities that are on a document that I've put together, but if after I finish my talk, people would like the full document, then feel free to DM me your email address, and I'm more than happy to send that on to you. So part 1, so looking at Key Stage 1 first of all. So this is the how. So we talked about the why, so why I think it's a good idea. The what, so that comes from the national curriculum, and now the how. So these are activity suggestions, and as I mentioned earlier, these are not activities that are necessarily tried and tested. These are just my kind of initial thinking around this, and please either try them out yourself or use them as a starting point for your own thinking. So one statement from the Key Stage 1 national curriculum is use logical reasoning to predict the behaviour of simple programs. So therefore, we want the children to predict what programs are going to do. So a suggested activity for this would be to somewhere on the playground you could do this with jumbo chalk, which you can get fairly cheaply from places like Amazon, is to draw several target areas. So it could just be a circle with letters of the alphabet in them, like A, B, C, D, etc. However many you think is appropriate. And then put together sets of instructions that would lead the children from a starting point to each one of those target areas. Now, depending on the reading ability of your class, this might be word instructions, or it might be a series of arrows and symbols of some kind, or pictures, whatever is appropriate. So it can be kind of differentiated fairly easily. The job the children would have to do then, they could do this in pairs or in groups or individually, again, it's up to you, would be to predict which set of instructions would take them from the starting point to which of the target areas. And then, of course, once they've predicted them, they can then test out their reasoning and adjust it accordingly. Now, this activity wouldn't necessarily take you a full kind of lesson time, if you like an hour or something like that. And some of the activities have been designed that way to be not necessarily really lengthy activities, because it's something that you want to do outside. And as we know, the British weather is very unreliable, so it's a chance of you to just kind of get out there, maybe for 20 minutes, half an hour, do one of these activities, and then you kind of working towards covering the computing curriculum in an outdoor setting. That's one idea for Key Stage 1. Then another idea for Key Stage 1 is, because a very, very important aspect of the computing curriculum is online safety. So here's a statement from the national curriculum about using technology safely and respectfully. So about kind of being respectful and knowing what to do if things go wrong. So if you see something you don't like. So a simple idea for this would be to put the children into groups, they make up a game together, they decide how to play the game safely, talk about what they will do if somebody's cheating and what you would do about it. So again, thinking about safety and thinking about what to do if if something goes wrong. Obviously try the game out, maybe even teach their game to other groups. It's something that could possibly be extended and developed again, however you would like to in your own school. So that's key stage 1. And then how part 2 is key stage 2, as you probably guessed by now. So here's a statement from the key stage 2 curriculum. Now, this was one of the ones that I found really, really difficult to come up with an idea for, using search technologies effectively and appreciate how results are selected. Now, one of the key things with search technologies like Google is that they function using keywords. So if the children are searching for something, if they're searching for something on a device inside the classroom, then you would obviously encourage them to think of a keyword to help them with their search, to help them get to the results that they would want. So an idea I had was outside would be to give the children some inquiry questions, so on a piece of paper or card or something like that. And those inquiry questions are designed so that a keyword will lead them to an answer. And then what you would do is you would fix to various objects on the playground, like the tree, the fence, the building, or something like that, and possible answers to those questions. And then the children have to think of a keyword from their inquiry question that would lead them to one of those places where the answer would be. I mean, I think this is something, like I said earlier, that I'm kind of in the very early stages of my thinking about. So it's probably something that could be refined and adapted a little bit if it doesn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully, it's something that will kind of spark your interest and kind of get you thinking about how this would work for you and your classes in your school. And then the final idea I'm going to talk to you about is the National Curriculum Objective, which is quite a wordy one. Basically is about combining different types of software. This could be apps, could be the internet, to design and create something to achieve a given goal. So the goal will be given by staff. So for example, in this case, the goal is to produce a film. And rather than filming it on green screen and so on and so forth inside the classroom, I thought that it might be an idea to write a script maybe, and then go out and film a short film set in the school grounds. And then you could edit it using apps such as iMovie to create the finished product or the goal. Now, I'm aware that this does actually involve devices, so you would need devices for this one, but I think on the document that I've done with all of the ideas, I think this is possibly the only one that does require devices. And again, I think it would be quite a nice activity for children to do. Although I hate the word nice, an engaging activity, one that they would get a lot out of, and they would have to combine different software and different technologies to produce a really high quality finished product. You could even then create a kind of film show maybe for other classes to watch remotely, because it can be saved on the school network, etc. And again, this is just my kind of initial thinking about this. And feel free to take that and develop it in any way that you like. Okay, so those are kind of a sample of some of the activities that I've started to think about for teaching the computing curriculum outdoors. As I mentioned earlier, if you want the full document that I've done, what I've done is I've mapped out each of the statements from the national curriculum against ideas of suggested ideas for you to deliver that outdoors. Then please get in touch, and I'll by all means email that to you, no problem. If you would like the work that I've done on the computing curriculum generally, I've done progression documents, termly progression documents for each year group from year 1 to 6. If you would like that, then if you go to my Twitter profile on the pinned tweet, there's a link to it there. So feel free to use that however you like. If outdoor learning is something that really floats your boat and it's something you're really interested in, then there are plenty of other educators on Twitter who have done work on outdoor learning. A good example is Mike Watson, who's at WhatsEd. He's a bit of an outdoor learning guru and a very, very helpful chap. I'm sure he will be more than willing to help you with anything you'd like regarding outdoor learning. And then just kind of try some of the ideas yourself, adapt them, develop them, and just kind of let me know if they work for you. Any feedback would always be appreciated. And finally, I just want to say thanks to the folks involved at #CashChat for inspiring me to start this work. And it's something that I'm going to kind of try and develop and continue with myself. yeah, and that's about it. So thanks for listening, and try to help.
Hi, thank you. That was really interesting, very different. So there was a question that was similar to the one that Graham was asked, which is what are the main difficulties if somebody's going to try that for the first time, something to keep in mind to avoid any problems with those activities. So things that could go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the weather being one, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like I said at the beginning, it's something that I'm still kind of very early on in my thinking about. So
Yeah.
I think it's you know, there's no really easy answer to that. I think it just be a case of just give it a go and see what you get with it. Kind of, you know, give it a try, see what happens, develop it, refine it. I don't think there are necessarily any massive kind of pitfalls.
Yeah.
I can see. Just, you know, obviously as usual, be mindful of health and safety and the British weather, really.
Yeah, the British weather. Yeah. So you've tried that with some of your students already?
Yeah, I've tried one or two of the activities. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the question was, what was their initial reaction? Because that can be very different from what they're used to usually in computing.
Yeah, it was very different because, you know, my class, like any other class, they really enjoy working with devices, computers, iPads, and that kind of thing. But also they really enjoy being outside. So they kind of, I think in their minds, they kind of saw it as a kind of mixture between a PE lesson and a computing lesson. So they really enjoyed it and we had some really good discussions between the children, listening to their discussions about kind of making predictions and reasoning things out. And I think it really kind of helped with their reasoning skills and their kind of thinking around computational thinking, rather than, oh, I can do this on a computer or I can do that on an iPad. More about their like logical and kind of computational thinking. It seemed to really help with that. And, you know, it's still very early days, but it's something that I am going to kind of continue working on and try more and more of them out as I get a chance, really.
Yeah. And then how do you make sure that the children understand that this is, just because it will be different from what they're used to, that this is a learning activity and not just, you know, having fun on the school grounds?
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that's something that you would make very clear at the start of the activity, the kind of the point of doing this, really. Not just saying, right, we're going to have some fun today, we're going to run around the playground. I think using the computing vocabulary with them, and kind of explaining the expectations from the lesson very clearly at the start, I think is the kind of how, I suppose it's how you sell it to them, how you present it to them. If you present it as, here's a few things, go and have a run around, then they might see it as just a game. But if you kind of talk seriously about include as much computing vocabulary as possible, then I think then that will help them to realise that actually it's a computing lesson that we happen to be doing outdoors, rather than just an outdoors fun activity.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, we have one more minute. If somebody has any other questions, just type on the chat. Tim wanted you to repeat your contact information so he can ask you for.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry, I missed that.
Tim.
Oh,
yeah. How can he get in touch with you again?
Okay, you can get in touch with me through Twitter. Excuse me, I'm at Bren Goodman on Twitter. Or if you want to email me directly, you can email me at brin.goodman@googlemail.com.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you so much, Bren. That was really interesting, and I think like a fresh approach. That's what people are saying on the chat as well. Different approach, a fresh approach to, yeah, they're very interested to try. So make sure that you follow Bren on Twitter so then you can discuss after you have tried that. And I'm sure he would appreciate feedback. Yeah. Great. Awesome. So thank you. So now we're going to go for our last speaker of the day, who is Emily. So Emily Morris will be talking about crisis management, how to be the proverbial swan in leadership.
Thank you very much, Flavia. Okay, so good morning, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. My talk is crisis management in schools and how to be the proverbial swan in leadership. I just want to say that leadership across school isn't just SLT, it's not the head teacher, it's not governors. I see everyone in school as being a leader in school. So when I talk about leadership, I'll often talk about teachers being leaders of learning, that everybody has a responsibility for leadership within school. So a little bit about me first. My name is Emily Morris. I've been teaching 21 years now and 7 years in leadership. I'm head teacher of a gorgeous one-form entry school in Morton on the Wirral. Very high levels of deprivation, high levels of need. We've got 2 SEN resource bases in our school. We have full-time 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, which are, you know, that is just an asset to have in a school, because if you're feeling a bit low, go and visit the 2-year-olds, they'll make you feel much happier. And we've also got a family centre, so there is a real big push on the community and how that works. So that's a little bit about me, and this is going to be my talk today. Just to reassure you, I'm not an expert at all in this. I don't claim to be, but I think it's really good for leaders to share their own experiences and how they manage things. I am by no means the queen of serene, but I'm very self-aware and I'm aware of that. So I've worked incredibly hard to be the proverbial swan. So I just want to share my experiences of that, and if it can help, then I hope that it will. I'm also on Twitter. I'm Mrs. M on Twitter, and I think my Twitter handle is a bit bizarre. It's Morris9_Emily or something like that. So, but I've retweeted from today. So if you want to share me, you're more than welcome. If you want to send me any messages, that's fine. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone. So crisis management in schools. So crisis is any event that is going to or is expected to lead to an unstable, dangerous situation affecting an individual, group, community, or whole society. So every day we encounter crisis. So it's about preempting when things are going to happen. And I often talk about crisis management for leaders to lead the way, to take them over stormy paths. So you can see from the little image that I've used there. I kind of use a phased approach to crisis, but it's just to say that a crisis isn't lockdown, like old style lockdown, or lockdown that we're in now, or you know, a fire or an emergency. Often you can have crisis management in class if you have children who find it really, really difficult to regulate their emotions. We have lots of children at the moment suffering with mental health and well-being on their return into school. So a lot of the things that we can do there are around looking at the risk. So always in crisis management, you start with the risk. What is the risk and how can we identify that? Then there's the plan. So you plan for that risk. Then it's the communication. So the internal communication and sharing roles and responsibilities. So everyone's got that clarity of the plan, of the risk, and they share that understanding. External communication, so making sure that all stakeholders are aware of anything that you do, whether that's your whole school emergency plan and what you would do in any event like that. And then it's the, oh, you can't see because well, my things are there, I'm not sure whether yours are, but then it's the doing cycle, the actions that you put into place. And then afterwards, it's always a review. When anything happens, it's always good to kind of take a step back, reflect on what's happened and review that. So crisis management can be anything. It can be a child in your class with incontinence issues. So it can be a case of looking at the risks, making a plan for that child, communicating that with your team in school. So who takes responsibility for that child and who's responsible for reviewing their plan, communicating that. So it may be that you're telling midday supervisors that this child has issues with incontinence. It may be talking to the school nursing service or the incontinence team at NHS, putting things into practice and then reviewing after any time. So a crisis management can be anything, and it's part and parcel of what we do every day in terms of looking at risk. One of the main things that makes us think now about crisis management is obviously COVID-19. It's an ongoing global pandemic. We can't get away from it. And although we may be very tired of hearing this phrase by now, it is completely true. These are unprecedented times, and unprecedented times called for unprecedented leadership. And it did put a lot of strain on leaders in schools and across education. So I just want to talk to you about kind of my leadership style and how I managed crisis at a time of COVID-19, and how that coincides with how I see myself as a leader. It's just to share some little golden nuggets of information and how I've dealt with things, and whether you find it useful or whether you want to discuss it further. Just a disclaimer there as well, schools were not closed. I know lots of people feel quite passionate about that, but during coronavirus, schools did remain open. Okay, so a lot of us may have felt like this in March, and it's that feeling of we've never done this before. This is the unprecedented bit. Nobody quite knew how to react, what to do, and it did feel like chaos and a lot of uncertainty. So that's how we may have been internally feeling at the time. So 5 leadership skills for crisis management. These are based on lots of research. I know if you've done your MPQH or your MPQSL or any kind of CPD around leadership, you may have looked at different leadership styles and different leadership skills. But these are the 5 that I always refer back to. This is my key list of 5 that I think make me a good leader in terms of leading my school. So relatable, empathetic, communicative. I don't know why I have that one on the list because I really struggle to say it. Consistent and creative. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those now. So relatable is all about just being you, just giving yourself completely and letting people buy into you. And that is being authentic, being real about situations. I think when it was the lead up to school closures and lockdown, national lockdown in March, I met frequently with my staff, and I was honest with them. I said, we're all frightened, and sharing how I felt encouraged others to share how they were feeling and being open about their emotions. So having that giving yourself to your team is just really, really important. Good professional relationship, be open, but have that professional boundary as well. So try not to vent or be unprofessional in how you display your emotions. Save that for your family and friends. I'm sure they'll thank you for that. Exercising self-control and self-awareness. So I call this the car journey. So my car journey in the morning on the way to work is where I kind of realign myself. I assess how I'm feeling every day, and exercise self-control. So if I know that I'm a little bit grumpy, and myself and the children and the dog have had a crazy morning getting ready for school, it gives me an opportunity to kind of ground myself before I get into school. And then the same on the way home from school. My car journey is great for me to help me to ground myself and help me to really reflect upon myself. Trust is so important, and building trust in relationships, and that comes from giving a little bit of yourself away to people. Values led, and show integrity and moral compass. So the key purpose around why we do everything is your rationale for the leader that you are. So I was brought up on a council estate from a single parent family, worked incredibly hard to get where I've got to today. And that is my key purpose, that everything I do in working in disadvantaged schools is to give children what was given to me when I was in education. So that is my purpose, and I'm always really clear on my purpose, that I'm there to serve the community, to serve my staff, and to make sure that the children get the best possible deal that they can. So a lot of what I do is led by my values, my moral compass, and my integrity. So, and definitely sense of humour and be personable. You've just got to be yourself. Empathetic, so leading with grace and meaning, and being mindful all the time. Just I call it just checking in on yourself, just making sure. I suffer with resting face that isn't very warm, so it's just being mindful of that when you are listening to people, that you are being yourself. Being patient and forgiving when everyone is trying to adapt to the new normal. This is what I'm often sharing with staff at the moment on the gates with parents. Not everyone is behaving appropriately at the moment. Everyone is in a high state of anxiety and heightened emotions. And it's how I say with the children in class, we look at the person. We don't judge their behaviour, because behind the behaviour is the person, and often it's a way of them communicating. So we often find that we are on the receiving end of lots of outbursts at the moment, lots of people not regulated in their emotions, but it's about taking a step back and trying to understand where that behaviour is coming from and having those conversations. Lots of people say, you know, we're all in it together. We are riding the same kind of storms. Some of it's stormier than others, but we're not all in the same boat. So it's really being empathetic towards that, recognising that it is a challenge, that you know, we are going through a difficult time at the moment, and just really taking a step back and making time to listen. I do exercise in my school an open door policy in my office. And at the moment, it can be quite challenging because we're all incredibly busy. But it's really important that we make time to listen to people, whether that is just, you know, sending a little text reminder and just letting people know that you're available if you need to, and relying on staff members to communicate that with you. Stepping outside and seeing it from others' point of views are really, really important, and sharing that with your staff as well. So if parents are finding it difficult, sharing that with your team. We're so used to reading body language and having face-to-face, especially in our school with our family centre. We're used to parents just popping in for a cup of tea and being able to judge how they are. And the staff room in our school is normally the absolute hub of activity where everyone is. So you really get to judge how everyone's feeling and gather the mood in school and the mood within the community. And it's more difficult now. So it's about making time for Zoom calls, Skype calls. We use WhatsApp with our parents, so a lot of the time I'll WhatsApp video chat them, just to say, like, I'm missing you, I don't see you often in school anymore. People may be distracted physically, you know, if they're working from home on their sofas, if we have a staff meeting and they're also looking after their families or taking an Amazon delivery in, trying to balance devices and getting devices to work. But it may be that they're also distant emotionally by the current situation. It's about us being empathetic as leaders and acknowledging that as well. Communication, probably the most important skill to have when dealing with crisis management. Internal and external communications must be well managed and well planned for. It's about being clear about your expectations and your messages. Clarity is absolute key. Be honest, but be reassuring. When I've met with my staff and we've done staff briefings, or I've spoken to parents, I've said, you know, we can't tell you, we don't know. You know, it is a scary time for all of us. It's being honest with them, but also reassuring. And if you've got that relationship, that trusting relationship, it's others having trust and faith in you, to trust you to make the right decisions, even though you're giving them the full picture. It's involving everyone, all stakeholders, sharing your rationale all the time, being open and transparent about what you're doing in your decision making, and open to feedback as well, so that everyone can be part of the decision making process. So it's not to say that my way is the only way, that we are open, and when we share that rationale, we say, having spoken to parents, we have decided to. So in our communication, we often relate back to why we're making the decisions that we are making. Being intentional, making a point to communicate regularly with purpose, a fine balance there between inundating people with multiple communications to the point that they are overwhelmed and confused by the information going out, but that also that you are informing people specifically what they need to know, and that is that clarity to get your point across. People appreciate hearing from you, even if you don't have the information yet. It builds trust and it lets them know that you're still there and monitoring development. So this is the preemptive communication. So this happened a lot during, and is still ongoing. If things are happening on Facebook, if something happens that evening in the news, or there's a newspaper report, or something happens locally, it's about preempting that communication that you will get, so kind of stopping it early on. So often I will send a quick text message out to parents to say, we know you may be feeling anxious because of the news this evening. We just want to reassure you, we are meeting tomorrow morning, we'll have a plan in place and we'll write to inform parents. So it's just about kind of stopping things before they happen. So just letting them know that you are, that you're actively communicating, but you're also preempting things as well. Creative ways of communicating. I think we've all kind of had to do this during the current period. So things like video messages, recording voice notes for briefings for staff, because there's a lot of information that needs to be taken on board with the reopening plans and the risk assessments and the weekly update to the risk assessment. So I will often do a quick little voice note to staff, just so it's easier to listen to than read a 5-page document, and making videos for parents and little talking booklets and things. So just being really creative in the ways that we can communicate so that they're receiving information in different ways and it's accessible to everyone. Clarity in messages. So the same as we would do in a normal meeting, at the end of every meeting, just have that real clarity on the communication that you have had then. So it's just like that final part. So this is what we've spoken about, this is what we're going to do. It's just having that clarity of communication. Being consistent, consistency is paramount. Be the person that your team and school community knows you to be. And if they've got that trusting relationship with you, they will kind of know what to expect. Don't take on behaviours that are inconsistent with who you are. It doesn't come across as authentic or genuine, and it doesn't make people believe in you because you are changing all the time. So try not to be faddy, try to be consistent, try to stick to your values and principles all the way through. And when there's upheaval, there's a tendency to focus on operational. I know this is called burying your head in the sand. It's easier to get in your office and answer emails than it is to be on the ground when things are tricky. There's no greater time to be leading at the front rather than focusing on operations. And it's tricky at the moment because being on the ground leading often means that operational work is taken home. So it's kind of getting that balance there, but being consistent. If you are seen on a daily basis as a leader, in a time of crisis, you need to be seen even more. It's quite easy to kind of say, well, I haven't seen Mrs. Morris on the gate this morning, so something must be happening, and that spreads like wildfire. So try to be consistent in the leader that you are. Keep sights ahead and point the way for your team. So it's sharing that clarity with them when you are leading. Sometimes it may not be clear for you, especially at the moment, there's so much going on. Don't share the fog. Try and get some clarity around that, or just, like I say, communicating that early on. Like at the moment, it's a lot going on and there's a lot of decisions to be made, but I will get back to you, so that they know that you are consistent in communicating with them. How you lead in times of crisis will ensure that your team can trust you. You will be the same person that leads the school day in, day out, as you will do in a crisis, and that consistency makes people feel secure. Being creative, and that's why I love the talk before. Being creative is key to everything that we do, and it's really important as a leader to be creative. Not to put the lid on anything, that anything is possible. Being flexible and adaptable, open to suggestions, embracing problem solving, welcoming feedback, and being reflective. Like I say, my car journey is my chance to kind of reflect on things, but also giving your team that opportunity to give you feedback as well. It's being open to suggestions, thinking outside the box. We say that we're a learning school and we're always learning from other people, and I always say to the children, sometimes I do training, like on a Saturday morning, where we learn from each other all the time. It's thinking of innovative solutions. It's thinking of the solutions and not just always the go-to answer. It is thinking outside the box, involving everyone, your whole team, your community, sharing ideas, learning from others. We do parent class representatives in our school. So our parent class reps are like our parent party. And they meet with us, and I tell them what's happening with school development, and they can tell us their views. And so it's involving the parents in creative ways forward for the school as well. Encouraging curiosity and healthy debate. So it's that being open with everyone. So it's not to say my way is the only way. It's encouraging curiosity. So I encourage everyone to ask questions of me. So if I've made a decision, it's healthy to say, why did we do it like that? Is there a reason behind it? Is there a different way of doing it? It's encouraging that healthy debate as we would do in the classroom. So what is the proverbial swan? Yeah, there we go. It's that calm, serene, gliding along and smiling, drifting around, like nothing can faze you. Just keep calm, just keep moving, especially in these tricky times, but then underneath your little feet are like this. And that might be what your head feels like a lot of the time, that you're pedaling, and you just can't stop. But on the surface, what everyone sees on the surface is this calm, consistent, authentic leader who's communicating well and who's got real clarity. To be the proverbial swan, there is an awful lot of work that goes on behind the screen, and that is really quite draining as well for a leader. And it's about being aware of that wearing a mask day in, day out, and pretending that everything is okay and being smiley and reassuring everyone can really take it out of you. So just a few top tips really about managing your own well-being, managing your own workload, and how to be the proverbial swan. One of the best golden nuggets that I've ever been given in leadership is you make the weather. This is completely true for me. I remember being an NQT and going into school in a terrible mood, and just feeling like everything's going wrong. Everyone's being, all the staff are being unkind to me in the staff room, and the children are having a rubbish day. Everything was going wrong. It's terrible. And it really is true that you make the weather. And I often feel that as a leader. When I've been reflective, I know when I've gone into school, and it may be that I'm not completely grumpy because I have a little chat to myself in the car on the way there, but it may just be that I am not my normal self. And all it takes is to see one teacher in the corridor, one teaching assistant, the cleaner, anyone, just to say, morning, and you just go, morning. And it's, oh, what's wrong with Emily today? Then that spreads the ripple effect of everyone saying, oh, what is it? Is it something you've done? Is it something I've done? Everyone goes into self-doubt mode. Everyone starts panicking. Then the teachers are teaching children and they're not feeling great because they're feeling anxious because there must be something going on because Emily's not herself today. The children pick up on that. They have a bad day. They go home. They say to their parents, oh, it's been a bad day. My teacher's been grumpy with me today. Then the parents are like, oh, I'm sick of this school. Everyone's really grumpy. You understand the ripple effect. And it's just about you making the weather and just being really mindful of that. So just to think, can you relate to this? Has there ever been a time where you felt that your mood or how you responded to a situation has had that ripple effect? You almost feel the ripples, and it's about how to stop those ripples before they happen. Managing your emotions, being really aware of your emotions, accepting and tolerating pleasant emotions. We're not always going to be happy, smiley, positive people, especially at the moment. There is an awful lot going on for everybody. It's identifying specific emotions that we're feeling and being able to tell the difference between them, recognizing and understanding patterns in our emotional reactions, and manage our emotional reactions in a way that work well for us, but for the long term as well. So it's about kind of training yourself in your emotions. Okay, I'm going to play a little video now. If you can't hear it, I will have a look at the settings, but just let me know if you can't hear.
We're only hearing like squeaking. So we're hearing something, but we can't tell the words.
Okay, for the video.
Yeah.
Let me just have a look.
I didn't know if that was what it was meant to be, but we can only hear quick.
Can result in false FFF response.
Okay. Sorry, I'll do it from the beginning.
Stress is usually seen as something we need to avoid. This is not true. We need stress, and we need our body's stress hormone cortisol to rise and fall throughout the day. Stress helps us wake up in the morning, helps us focus, learn, and remember new things. It's when people experience too much stress and start having difficulties coping that stress becomes a problem. High levels of stress can disrupt the natural changes in the body's stress response system and start to affect our physical and mental health. Over time, accumulated stress can result in false FFF response activations. When trying to measure our stress tolerance, the bucket analogy can be helpful. Our stress tolerance, or the size of our bucket, is a product of our genes, personality, and life experiences, and its size varies from person to person. The water in this analogy is the combination of all the stress in your life. We use the coping strategies we have available to keep our bucket from overflowing. They are like taps that allow water to drain from the bucket. Stress can include training, work, school, relationships, finances, moving, changing jobs, or the loss of a loved one. Both positive and negative experiences will affect the water level. A big bucket can hold more water or stress before it overflows. With a smaller bucket, less water is required for the water or stress level to become critical. While you can't change the size of your bucket, you can make life adjustments to reduce water coming in. You can also learn new coping strategies and stress management techniques to allow water to drain out. Mind tools, exercise, quality sleep, relaxation, and sharing your feelings with friends are some examples of effective water taps. Staying up late, sleeping in, drugs, inactivity, procrastination, suppressing or ignoring problems are examples of unhelpful coping strategies or false taps. They might give temporary relief, but actually result in water flowing back into your bucket. This video was created by Brave, Building Healthy Minds.
Okay, so apologies if anyone who already knows about the stress bucket, but it's always a really good reminder and it really helps me. In my office, in work, I've got a little drawing of my own bucket, so I know what things fill my bucket up, what I look like, how I feel, how I present when my bucket is full, and the things that I can use to kind of open my valves and relieve my stress bucket. It's now more important than ever to practice good self-care. Our schools and communities need us to be at our best, and it's really, really important. It's important to make time for yourself, finding a good work-life balance. And we do a lot of work in our school on workload. We don't mark, we don't meet for meeting's sake, we take PPA at home. So there's a lot of what we do in our whole school ethos is around making sure that we are at our best to teach and lead. Exercise, and this is all part of being authentic. I'm not a great exerciser. I joined the gym and I used the 20% discount and just went to the restaurant all the time. It's being true to yourself, finding something that works for you. Mine is just walking the dog and making sure that I get my steps up during the day, because I've tried yoga, I've tried boxercise. It's not me, it's not what I do. So just finding something that works for you to get active. Eat well and sleep well, practicing resilience building, not being tokenistic. So it's not doing things because that's what's expected of you. It just puts more pressure on you to do that. It's about finding what works well for you and making time for that. Just focusing really on positivity, just slowing down, noticing, being grateful, just taking those deep breaths, and find your kind of happy place. As I've spoken about, mine is the car journey in and out of work. It can be a bath, it can be, reading, whatever your thing is. It's that slowing down and noticing really helps you to reflect on who you are as a person and who you are as a leader. Mental health is just as important as physical health. You wouldn't try and walk on a broken leg. So if you're feeling that your bucket is full and you're not in a good place, it's just about being kind to yourself and putting some steps in to help you to heal. So the power of positivity, I use a lot of these things here. You may find your own, so I just wanted to share some of this information. If you don't follow Reen Barrett on Twitter, she is absolutely fantastic. And if you haven't had the joy of listening to her speak, please make sure that you do. She is an advocate of resilient leadership, but some wonderful stuff. And she's great on Twitter, shares little tips and advice and everything, but she's also kindly during this time shared some of her free videos as well, and resources. So if you follow her on Twitter, some of her videos, if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to her speak, her videos are amazing, just to help you to understand what positivity looks like and how to be a resilient leader. A lot of Reen's work is based around Barbara Friedrichsen. She is a researcher, and a lot of her work is around recognizing positive emotions and how to kind of tap into positive emotions to make us happier, and build those skills. So read some of her research. Is just absolutely fantastic. If you kind of want a whistle-stop tour, Reen includes that in a lot of the work that she does. The main thing that changed me as a leader is Professor Steve Peters' book, The Chimp Paradox. If you've not heard of it, it's absolutely fantastic. It's also available now on Audible. So if you cannot get into reading at the moment, you just want to listen to something, it's fantastic. So next to my bucket, my wall in my office is also a little picture that I've drawn of my chimp, what my chimp feels like for me, and how I kind of manage my chimp, manage my emotions, put my chimp back in the box, or feed my chimp. And it's kind of how the chimp makes me feel. So a brilliant book. It's worked for me. I'm a wonderful procrastinator, so my chimp often stops me from doing things. So if you're looking for a good book to read to kind of help you, that is fantastic. Some great websites, Action for Happiness, they have great kind of like timetables, like gratitude month, so something that you do every day, kind of like an advent calendar, for looking after your mental health and well-being. And they're great to put up in the staff room just to kind of help everyone with focusing on positivity. There's websites there, some different help and toolkits for teachers, also free confidential counselling and advice lines as well for people working in education. So I've just put those up there, but I'll pop them on my Twitter as well, so you've got them. It's finding whatever works for you. It's not being thankful. For me, it's my family and school as well. I know it's a job, but I do love it and I thrive off it. Making sure that you smile, it's very contagious, smiling at somebody. Gratitude diary. So again, it's being authentic, only doing things if it works for you, and it absolutely works for me. Not doing a daily diary. Writing lists is my thing. I'm an absolute list writer. So yeah, this is my book that I use. So it's just a book that I bought, but I've kind of tabbed it and organised it into all my ideas. And so I have my daily to-do lists in there. I have my shopping list and my weekly menu plans. I tried to buy something that would help me, like a gratitude diary or a journal, to help me organise my life, and I couldn't find anything. So I kind of made my own, and it's my kind of like journey. But I always try to sit of an evening and just have my daily gratitude, like things that have gone well during the day and things to reflect on. And it just helps me go to bed positive. I'm writing a to-do list of things that are still outstanding to do, long-term and short-term goals. Kind of helps me to offload and yeah, put myself to bed. So that's my talk. I'm sorry to talk really, really quickly, and there's a lot of information to take in there. Like I say, I'm not an expert at all. I just wanted to share with you my understanding of leadership, how I am as a leader, and how this period of time, this crisis management, puts a strain on leadership, and just how I've dealt with it, and the things that I've used to help me. So if you've got any questions or feedback, like I say, I'm really open. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, please do it. I don't say anything that exciting, but it's nice just to engage with everyone. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Emily. That was great. Very, very nice, very inspiring as well. Just posted your Twitter handle on the chat as well, so people can follow you. We have time for a couple of questions. So you talked a lot about communicating with parents when something happens. So the question was, has communication with parents changed a lot during COVID? And you think for the best or for the worst?
I think for the best, definitely. Parents, we've really established some fantastic relationship with our parents, and we do have quite an active Facebook account, and a lot of our parents will communicate with us on Facebook, on Twitter. We use text messages, but we've also got school mobile phones as well now, so that we can WhatsApp chats with parents. It's about finding what works with our parents and opening up that communication. So yeah, I think it's definitely improved. A lot of my teachers did welfare calls, and a lot of the support staff did welfare calls every week during lockdown. So speaking to the parents on the phone and doing doorstop visits and things, let parents know that we were still there for them, and that really did help with communication.
Yeah, great. And then when you make an important decision, how do you deal with self-doubt or not being entirely sure of what decision has to be made, but having to make one?
So I think with any big decisions, I do try and involve everyone as much as possible, because I do feel that it's not my school, it's our school. We're all in it together. So it's about, you know, I've got a very good professional network with other head teachers, so I'll often discuss things with them. I'll share things with my leadership team in school. I'll speak to the staff. I'll speak to my governors. I'll often speak to my parent class reps. You know, I'll speak to parents and say to them, you know, we're thinking of doing this. What would be the feel of the community? How would this look like, and what would the response be? So I do try and involve people as much as possible. But yeah, self-doubt's still there. Yeah, imposter syndrome and self-doubt is something that we do need to work on.
Yeah. And yeah, we have one more question that we can fit in the time. How, as a leader, how can you make sure that everybody in your school is aware of the importance of mental health and are taking care of themselves?
Yeah, so it's not just a thing we do, it's part and parcel of everything that we do in our school. So that is, you know, having very open conversations with everyone, making sure that we're aware, talking about it all the time, that we've got mental health first aiders on our staff. But it's part and parcel of everything that we do around workload, managing workload, and focusing on well-being. It's spoken about all the time. It's not tokenistic. It's not just something that we do as an extra. It's part of who we are as a school.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds good. Okay, so I have to stop now because it was meant to conference to stop at 11:20. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here on Saturday. Thank you, Bren, Emily, and Graham, for your talks. They were all really great. Make sure everybody to go on Twitter to thank our speakers for giving their talks this morning. You have their handles over there, and then use the hashtag Seneca CPG and Primary Rock so everybody can follow. Make sure you also go on senecalearning.com to check out our free resources for primary teachers. And I really hope you have a great day. You will receive an email with the slides and some extra links. And if you want anything else, just make sure you tweet us or email us and the speakers, and then you can get that. So thank you, everybody, and hope you have a good day and see you next time.